Yeah, okay.
I don't like the way you did that.
Yeah, I just briefly looked through the answer, okay.
I just think we should make it a little more.
Okay.
I'll shoot
Use your mics.
I'm gonna go ahead and open up the Board of Works meeting on May 24th at 5 p.m. Stand for the
Make a motion that minutes be accepted as presented.
Oh, you weren't here, I'm better, I forgot. Okay, I'll second that.
Mayor Sheets.
Aye.
Greg Miller.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Abstain. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda are claims. Right over there, thank you. Yes, yeah, working on them, so, okay.
Yes, I'll make the motion, we approve the claims that are submitted to us this evening.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Sheets.
Aye.
Greg Miller.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
I think it should be.
Okay, is it just Crystal? Okay, it says items on the list. Okay, Crystal.
I'm not really very prepared because I just saw this meeting like
Oh.
a few hours ago, so like I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I just know from Alice's could come and talk about their alleyway or so 10 months ago, like as a Main Street member, I went to talk to Andy and Kathy at Ellis's to talk about because I knew they wanted to add some art on them and make that alleyway a little bit more, I guess, more decorative, nicer. And so from that conversation, part of the issue is the alleyway's a little bumpy, and so they're worried about kind of more people coming down that alleyway, especially if they put art. And so I think this got started because we were just wondering how to go about working on the alleyway to make it more flat. And they would like to add some benches. And I've seen some pictures of benches that were made that they like to put in and really nice. Of course, I'm not prepared for this, so I apologize for that. And like they have bricked-in windows, and so the idea is they would make like frames, and they know they have to go through Main Street and all this stuff, but make like wood frames where like artwork could be put in and taken out on a regular basis. I'm here to see what you guys talk about because I know none of them could come. So, and Kim from Main Street has talked to people at Arnie's. I know they're interested in doing stuff on their wall too. So, I just need to listen since they couldn't come and represent what they want to do. So, if you have more questions or whatever, I think the biggest concern is just the alleyway and getting it more flat, smooth, and possibly in the back where the trash is for Arnie's, and you can build in something around it so it's not as quite an eyesore. And the idea with the art could be where like, something on such day, people come, it's like a gallery, in their gallery. So that's kind of the idea for that. So if you have more questions, I'll try to be very prepared.
Okay, that's okay, and then we're gonna talk to Don here just a little bit as well, so maybe if you have anything then. Thank you. Okay, department reports, Bart. What do you have for us?
I've never went first.
There you are, you're first.
Okay. Good evening. The first thing that I have is the Perfect Park Center, and they would like to rent out the entire inside. They just want, since there is alcohol, obviously we would just send it to the department task if they would want an officer, but I don't know.
Question. Okay, so is that $75? That's they have to have a license.
They do.
That's right. And I bet that after the weekend, from here on out, we have to pay the license in order.
Right. I know the neighborhood center, they have a form that they have to turn for us. I think it's the same. Or it's just a form. should have brought that. I didn't think that, since I'll have alcohol there. Unless, I mean, I know the caterers, they all have to have like an actual legit alcohol, permit. So I think that we just generally give them the form. Shoemaker?
Because they're selling it.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
If they bring it in,
Yeah.
caterer, they have to have a permit. But if
Okay.
not, then they do not need that. They just have that separate form that says I'll have alcohol. Actually, I think they just check it on here, which they did.
So if somebody comes in for a party, they can bring in.
They can't bring in liquor.
Okay,
So the ordinance reads at Prairie Creek Park, no hard liquor. Same thing with
and so
food.
you are gonna be the one that's going to work with them and determine that, okay,
So they always tell us in advance if it's gonna be beer or wine,
okay,
but hard liquor is not allowed.
okay,
So the ordinance doesn't read that way.
okay. Does that sound okay to you? Do we wanna have any more questions, or do we wanna approve this?
I don't see any issues. I think they've checked all the boxes. I think one question I had, and we're going to have another approval piece too. I'll just interject a comment that I know we approved these forms quite some time ago, and yet we had the City of Frankfurt special event public property use for one that we'll talk about here in a moment, and this is specifically Prairie Creek. The one that we'll talk about here in a moment. Hope I'm not muddying up things, but I wonder if they shouldn't have been specific to Prairie Creek.
Yeah, so the difference with these two forms
Yes,
is the one that I'm presenting is just for the event center. So they won't be anywhere outside with where the public can interact with them. Because that's very different if the public is going to be around the alcohol.
Okay.
This other form is if they're going to use the entire property, including the event center.
Okay.
So that's the difference in these two.
Okay. Very good. Yes, the one in question for the 50th anniversary party, anticipated attendance of 50 to 75 people. After the wonderful grand opening that we had this last week, I just see the future is bright for that particular new amenity to our community, and I'm glad we can promote this. I, for one, would make a motion we approve this event.
Okay, this is the one for Tricia Wells,
Yes.
okay,
No second.
roll call please.
Mayor Sheets.
Aye.
Greg Miller.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Thank you. I will comment, Kimberly had over 50 voicemails today when she came.
Oh my gosh,
All about renting Prairie.
you are kidding,
Seriously.
wow, that's
So
great.
she was on the phone almost all day setting up dates for the whole rest of the year, even some for next year. So, yeah, it went over really well. The next thing I have
We want to
is,
do the United Way one as well.
that's what I'm gonna present.
Oh, okay, okay,
The next one I have is for the United Way of Clinton County. They tried to do this last year. It's the same celebration. It's a campaign celebration. So they would be using, I think on your guys' form, it had the sidewalk and street and like a restriction on closing. That's been amended. They're not gonna shut down a street. It's just gonna be on the lawn in the event center in the beer garden. They won't have any alcohol, but they will be serving drinks.
okay,
So they'll be using, obviously, the restroom facilities, the stage. They're going to have an event on the stage. They'll have vendors there, face painting, and they just want to basically invite everyone to come and celebrate the United Way.
I like that, and this is gonna be great, but I really would like to see when they put in the applications, just everything they intend to do
Sure.
and avail themselves to, and they've had conversation with you, so you know, you're passing that along, which is great, but I think for record keeping, I would like to have they need the restrooms, they need the stage, they, you know, all these other little nuances of the event. I'd like the applications to be in a little more detail.
Okay.
So.
I mean, it does say, I
Yes,
understand what
I'm
you're
not-
saying right
Yeah,
there.
I'm not asking for this to be amended
Sure.
before we approve it, I just.
I do. So for example, like last time when we were talking about the community picnic and now they've presented us with their agenda from the stand up, don't stand by. Is this what you're talking about where they give us exactly what they're going to be doing that day?
Not necessarily, even if they're making notes on here, because according to this form, they're not using it.
Right, so I think this was my form. where they did highlight those things.
Oh, okay,
Maybe in that copy it didn't get transferred.
yes, I got some,
So,
okay.
so instead of highlighting it, maybe we can put check boxes next to there, and then so they will have an X or a checkbox. Because I think that's not the only time that's happened.
Or you, somebody in your office check it, so when it gets
Sure.
copied or something, I'm sorry.
Yep, we can
Okay.
do that. No, that makes sense.
Alrighty, I'm just not a mind reader, 'cause- Okay. Yes, June 29th for United Way celebration. I too will, make a motion, we approve this event as well.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Sheets,
Aye.
Greg Miller,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
So I did bring, if you guys want to look at, that's from the Stand Up, Don't Stand By. They just gave that to us, so I just wanted to bring it so you guys could have a copy and see. Because there was a little bit of confusion last week. I did have a meeting with the person that runs it, and we felt really good about, after they came and talked to us, we felt good about their.
And they sent me an email as well.
Good.
Explaining some of that. So I'm like you, I felt much better after I
Sure.
read the email.
And it's their first year, really their first event. So especially with them being so new at it, I think as they go, they'll have more solid plans when they present that stuff.
And it's just gonna be for 3 hours.
Mhm.
And it's gonna be open to the public. Looks like they have a lot of activities going on there.
They do have a lot of fun things planned, and it's gonna be free, so, other than vendors, same way with our event this past weekend.
Okay.
The only other thing I have, which is not on the agenda, is I do have the Miracle Playgrounds of Indiana information, so.
Do we wanna go ahead and approve that event, or are you guys ready? Because we
Oh, I
didn't.
thought we had approved that.
No, we did not on
Okay.
the last one. I think we asked you to come back with more information. I think that's what we left it, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
On that one. But let's redo it because they sent us everything they're gonna be
Sure.
doing, and I think it was kind of pending what you found out from them, so.
This includes everything then that we have for that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve a community picnic fundraiser for July the 10th.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Sheets,
Aye.
Greg Miller,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Thank you. The last thing I have is, you guys are all aware of the gravity rail issues that we have at TPA. So, long story short, when they first installed that, they used a manufacturing process that they do not use anymore. They found that most of those across not only Indiana, but the other states have all failed. And so after speaking with their corporate office, they've agreed to come out. We still have to pay for the new parts, but they will come out and service the entire project and do it all free of labor, or the labor free of charge. So it's just under $2,000. It's $1,959, and of course it's tax exempt. But they said within 2 to 3 weeks they would have the product, and then they would be able to. They're going to replace the entire center rail. They'll fix all the new welds, and they'll put brand new wheels on.
And is it functioning right now, or
Not
just?
very well.
I was gonna say, because I'm getting complaints
Yeah,
on it.
both sides of it pretty much stop at where it welds. So either direction you go down, it definitely doesn't even go halfway.
Okay.
So if you look on the website, you look it up online, it's supposed to go all the way across to where they can get to the other side, and it does not do that.
Doesn't do it right now.
No, and as far as I know, it never has. So which is why they're not really charging us very much to come out and do this, because they spent a lot of money on this when it was first built.
And I think the calls that I'm getting, they're concerned about the safety as well.
Sure.
So, that's one thing we have to look at. I mean, if we're gonna have that piece of equipment out there, we've gotta have it working correctly.
Because it abruptly stops.
Yes.
When it gets caught. So that's probably what they're talking about with the safety.
I think I told you the figure that you have left in CCD.
Mhm.
We do have some money appropriated for the Parks Department and CCD. Does that still allow you to do what you want to do otherwise with that money?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm okay with it because I feel like it's something we need to have fixed, or else we're just not gonna be able to have it functioning, so.
And it really was no one's fault. I mean, it's just a manufacturing error. So it's not like it was not maintained.
Yes. I'll make that motion that we approve the repairs on that gravity line, whatever they call it, gravity rail.
Gravity rail. Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Sheets,
Aye.
Greg Miller,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Okay, so go ahead and get them
That's all I
busy
have.
on that. That way, yet this summer, they'll have it fixed and ready to go.
Absolutely.
It's gonna make people happy. Like I said, I've gotten some complaints, they were unhappy.
Me too.
That's a good piece of equipment out there, the kids love it, so,
Well, thank you. That's all I have.
okay, thank you. And Parks Department, thank you so much for Saturday.
Sure.
That
Had a good
was,
time.
that was
So
a
did we.
fantastic. Yeah, loved it. Thank your workers. I mean, they were troopers that day. They stayed there all day.
Well, they left about 12:30 that night.
Oh my gosh.
Most of them got there about between 9 and 10 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Left about 12:30. So
And they were everywhere, making sure trash was picked up. They kept it so nice and neat and everything in order. And I had somebody say that to me. They said they saw them out there working, keeping everything in order, and thank you so much. They are appreciated. And Kimberly did a
Yeah.
fantastic job at
she did.
getting that event put
There's a
together.
lot of people that, put time and effort into that
Oh,
event. And
yeah.
I had multiple, even I had like 3 voicemails today where people were just on the phone thanking us for the event. There was a family from Zionsville that said they had heard about it on the radio and came out here and enjoyed it. They said they're really looking forward to coming to the next one.
Messages as well. So I think it was a success. So we're on our way, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, building services, Don.
Good evening. I think we emailed them out, the packages at Ellis's in the alley. Let's talk a little bit about that, so we'll give you as much information as we can. This is a project that's been ongoing for quite a while. Kathy was having problems finding out which is the area that they go through to get this all passed, and being the fact that it's uptown and this alley is not a vacated alley, it would come before the Board of Works. I talked to Les about that, and he suggested that the Board of Works have their say-so on this project. In your packet, you have pictures of the wall of Ellis Jewelry there, the gray wall. And what they're planning on doing with the wall is where the windows are boarded up. They're looking at putting artwork on those. So the frames are going to be painted in a darker color gray, and then the artwork itself will be removable. And then they plan on building their own benches and flower pots that'll go along the wall based on the alley floor itself. If this passes, we will then head to Arnie's and discuss with them about the ability, well, it's actually in the ordinance that their trash containers should be surrounded by a 6-foot fence. So we'll see about having them do that. And I know that Kathy has spoken to Arnie's also about this project and had asked them if they wanted to be engaged in it. She said for the most part, Arnie's wanted to be able to put a doorway in the wall and maybe be able to set tables out. But she said she never could get a complete answer from them on whether or not that was what they were planning on doing. So what we'll do is if this passes for Ellis's, I'll go up and talk to Arnie's and find out if they have any additions that they want to do to the alley in itself. The only small concern that I have is at the far north end of the alley. I mean, this is still an accessible alley, kind of. I mean, I don't know what kind of automobile can make the turn to come down that alley. It can't from the street because the street now has a curb in front of the alley. And the curb was put in for the purpose of doing something with this alley in this type of a nature. So maybe I wouldn't suggest any type of a concrete barrier that goes across there, but maybe if you would look at some type of I don't know the proper terminology of this, but piping that would be in there so if anything should come, it couldn't be able to get through. This also will have lighting, as Ellis's will put some lighting on their wall. And there are also 2 night lights and then a street lamp that lights up this alleyway also. but that's the consistency of the project. And, we wait for the Board of Works for approval if you have any questions.
Don, did you say initially that this alley has been vacated?
It has not,
It has not been, that's correct.
no, it's not. It's still an active alley, and for any use in the alley would have to come before the board. It's an active alley, but it's really not an active alley because it's pretty difficult to get vehicles from the north end into the property. I don't think there's any way it can make a turn. And there isn't any way outside of coming up over the top of the curb, you'd be able to get into the alley, and the curb is a regular height curb, 4 inches or so. So I think that in the long run, I think the project is a safe project. I don't think there'll be an issue. I mean, there'll be an issue with anything that you go with, but for what they're wanting to do, putting handmade benches and flower boxes and then artwork up on their windows, I don't see it to be a real big issue.
And neither business uses it for like deliveries or anything like that. Nobody
Right.
comes up through there.
No, you can't get through it, no.
So Wes, since it's not vacated, can we just, like you said, put some sort of barrier there and not have to vacate it or anything?
You know, on that north end, you know, the type of posts that they have now in front of the Farmers Bank.
That's right.
Yeah, that
That's right.
type of thing would
Right. Okay,
look pretty good.
So from the city side, the thing that we have to be concerned about is the surface, right? The driving or the walking surface, is that the concern? Didn't you say, Crystal, something about that?
Yeah, it's really uneven and also on, it's been a while since I've walked on that alleyway, but on Arnie's side, there's some window wells that like aren't very big, but there's definitely kind of like a hole, so I don't know if there's a way to cover those. And right now, I think if you try to put benches, they would just like wobble because the surface really isn't very uneven, so that was kind of one of their biggest concerns was. And they have a lot of customers who do use that alleyway, just to go in there. And also, I think, from what I've heard, Arnie's would like to redo the old, like, tobacco, like, not mural, but the advertisement, so that's, and maybe put up some artwork on that as well, but I haven't talked to them personally, I know Kim has, but, so yeah, that's kind of the concern, is the benches would wobble, people might trip, and then the window wells on the ground. Are kind of the biggest concern safety wise.
So would that be the city's responsibility then for the surface part of it, the driveway, what about,
It's still a city alley.
but then as far as like what is it, like the protection around that, is that what it is that you're talking about, or is it just unlevel?
It's just,
Well, you can see on the front of the
So
picture that
that's what you're,
it's a sort of it was probably a coal chute or something.
I would say that. It's got a cover over it right now.
It may be that Arnie's, if they don't use it, they wouldn't have any objection to covering it up, I don't know.
All questions that I can fulfill with Arnie's.
okay.
I think if looking over this information, the information that Don has brought to us today is specific to Ellis's and not Arnie's at this time. And I think our job would be to act upon the Ellis's request at this time, take the surface under advisement to see, look and see what we need to do when we need to do that. Sounds like Arnie thinks it's a good idea to partner, but we don't have a commitment or an assurance just as yet. So I think the approval that we need would be for the request that Ellis's is asking as of this evening. But I do appreciate, I hadn't even thought about, because we didn't hear about, at least I hadn't heard about the alley surface until this evening, so I'm glad that was brought up. Because you're right, there's some things to be walking around if you walk up the alley.
And just in general, if someone who was just walking down there, they tripped, you wouldn't want them to sue the city. And I don't use it very often, but I guess a lot of their customers do use that alleyway. The hopes is like having that be like kind of an active outdoor gallery. So like people could gather, maybe bring instruments, play music, add to, just bring more people downtown. So that's kind of where Main Street and the revitalization and design kind of fall into play. So, and so we think just adding where it looks nicer and easier to walk down.
And I guess to Dawn, I'd like to know what they're thinking of putting on that north end or what, would they look for us to do that for them, but what would we do there? I guess we gotta think about the cost as well, between the resurfacing and what kind of a barrier we'd have to put there.
I wouldn't think it'd take more than two.
I'm fine with what Ellis wants to do. I think it's a great idea.
One follow-up point, if I may, Jason isn't here, and I'm sure he's not an engineer, but from an elevation standpoint, if you were to resurface that, I don't know about the drainage, where it would go, it might cause a bigger problem, and it might be higher than that concrete you see in the front of the picture, and it could cause real basement moisture problems over on Arnie's if they've. I think they have a crawl space actually. I'm not sure what they have there. Is it a basement? Yeah, so there's a lot to consider there before going in. And also, I'd probably have to be milled out if it's going to resurface because of elevation. I don't know if you get any equipment in there to mill it.
I'm not for sure how the utility cuts. I know that Jim Spears takes care of the utility cuts for the city streets. And I don't know if as an opportunity maybe to at least looking at maybe not doing a lot of repair work in there, but maybe doing some patchwork. If that's necessary, maybe that's something that Jim could do also. I don't know that, but it could be something that I could follow up on and give you the information on that also.
Okay, that'd be great.
I think there's a lot of follow-up that we need. I agree with Megan's idea about voting on or agreeing with what Ellis wants to do. But is that also contingent on these other improvements being done? So are they willing to go ahead and do that with the frames and dress up that wall, even though that the surface may not be redone? Or if Arnie's, I guess, to me, a big concern is with Arnie's also using this alley. It looks like they have a couple large vents out there also coming out of Arnie's into that area there. They have 2 exhaust vents coming out there. So, I'm just wondering how accepting Arnie's will be utilizing this alley, or an excellent point that Les said. It looks like the elevation, it looks like it drops to Arnie's now. That direction, it looks like it actually goes that way. So I think we need to look at, are we looking at them doing this contingent on these other improvements being done? And what will that open up to have one part of the project be successful and the other part maybe hinging on, the cost of that? I think it's a great idea to dress that side up. And I was talking to Michael at the park open house, and one of his concerns was the area back where the dumpster is. Obviously, that's been made a thoroughfare for people to use for Arnie's. So if we close that off in any manner so you can't see that, that would also close that alley off for foot traffic for that. So I guess looking down the road is, how do we hide that area back there but still leave it open for foot traffic on there also? The other question I have, Don, is would the utilities have any area in here that they would be concerned of? It looks like on the north end and south end, we have utilities accessing that alley with the pole at the end. Also, is there any concern with the utilities for that, either above ground or below ground?
I've not spoken with them, but I will.
Okay. And I think it's,
We'll get questions on, and get resolved and bring back to the next Board of Works meeting if that's what's necessary.
yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think, to be proactive with this, and if they want to do that work, I just don't want that work to be contingent on work being done in the future that may cost more than.
I would think on that north end, we wouldn't want a solid barrier or anything, but if they could still get the 6-foot fence
Well-
around the trash and then maybe, like you said, just.
I mean, one of the challenges that both Ellis's and Arnie's had to come to an agreement on the alley was, I think Ellis's actually wanted it blocked off back there so that they could put their tables and stuff out. And Ellis says, no, we don't want that because they have a lot of customers that come down through that alley. And of course, when the bank was opened, a lot of their folks parked back there and then walked their way down and through the alley to get to their, so they do not want it in any manner to where people can't walk through. You couldn't do that because if you did do that, then Arnie's would be able to use their trash containers or get them out and get them dumped. So to have space open so that all that can be resolved is necessary. And I think I'm not a construction guy, don't claim to be, but to put a fence around it surely wouldn't be as difficult. But it may need some space to get out and around. But that'll be questions I can talk to Daniel about to find out, go down and take a visit, and then we can bring it back before you guys or before the board with all the information that I've written down that you've asked about.
Sounds great. I anticipate, since Ellis has initiated this, that they would like to enhance their side and as they have with their building as a whole. So I look for that to probably go forward as they've requested, but I think we need to be sure. So I think that's a good thing that we double check on them.
As in Kathy's humor, she said
Yeah.
she's been working for 2 years and she's ready to retire. So when she gets this project in, so she will retire. That's what she said. But I'll do some more homework on
Thanks for the discussion, because that was, just works well that way when we can think out loud.
I think also, Don, just to relay that, I think it has support for that. I think that's the direction we want to go. I just think some unanswered questions from that point on, but I think fully supportive of what they want to do to that area for sure.
She'll be glad to hear that. I mean, that's more than she's had in years. So I'm sure that can get set forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita, are you here for your request for Prairie Creek Park? We've already done it and we approved it.
Oh,
so-
great. Well, they told me 5:30, so.
They lied to you.
Do you have any questions maybe I can answer for you?
Questions for Anita?
Do what?
Can't think of anything, although it's good fun because it's good news.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, huh? You got a soccer game to go to.
Oh, thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If they kneel for national.
Do what?
Don't boo if they kneel.
All right.
Okay, Les, what do you have for us this evening?
The building at 16 North Main, former utility building office, the board has previously authorized us going forward with taking bids on that. We did. I think the high one was 71,000. And so I think if we look back in the minutes, we also, by motion or consensus, had the progress through that sale proceeding approved by the council at some point. But the statute, if it's over $50,000 that it ends up selling for, which it is, there also has to be a public hearing and consent of the council. So it does say who has to have the public hearing. The logical board seems to be this one. I was hoping to do that on that at that special meeting that we had set for May 27th, because that would allow enough time to get the notice published. But that's been canceled because of the change in the timeline on the lease station. So our next Board of Works meeting, I think, is not until June 14th.
Something like that, I think.
There's an urgency meeting on 27.
Because we were gonna have.
So I think if you think, if this board needs to meet anytime prior to June 14th, for anything, we could certainly do it then.
So does that stop the whole process then at this
I have
point?
to, the publication has to go in at least 10 days before the public hearing. We can wait till the 14th, but we have the purchase agreement in final form. And I told the purchaser he wanted, inspections and all this. He had an Indianapolis law firm. I thought, well, I know what's gonna happen. You might as well have him do the first draft because it's gonna be about 18 pages. And it was. And it's fine, but we're ready to go forward. So we can wait till the 14th. He's in there inspecting and doing everything.
That's what I wondered, is he in there?
I will do the pleasure of the board and the advice of our attorney, because I certainly don't mind holding a special meeting to get that business taken care of either, out of respect for the process and the purchaser.
Sure, that's great.
Yeah, right. And I think the sooner we get that taken care of, I think the better we'll be. Have an active buyer and
It would take about 5 minutes.
You can do it like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Do you need to notice them on time for notice?
48.
48 hours.
No, I've got to publish it.
Oh, he's
10
gonna
days.
publish it. Oh, so, oh, that's gonna get us right there then.
That's pretty close anyway. I just wait.
Is that if we have to have that
Okay.
published?
We'll just do it on the 14th.
Yeah, because 10 days. Do you even get it to the Times tomorrow? When are they printing now?
Wednesday and Saturday, which is another issue.
That'd be a Saturday probably. Yeah, so we're not gonna,
Do you only broadcast on Wednesdays and Saturday? No.
I'm thinking we're gonna be right there. So, yeah. let's-
Okay,
let's go ahead
that's
and
fine.
do that. Put that for Shirley today. To make sure that it's on the agenda.
And I'll prepare the notice and get it over for publication.
And then that'll have to be sent to the Times.
I think that's all I have, man. Other than, again, the Parks Department, Andy and everybody who was involved in that celebration at Prairie Creek Park Saturday was fabulous.
Next up, unfinished business. Do you have anything under unfinished? Greg, do you have anything?
no, I thought Shirley,
He was just talking about how there was no incidents up there.
Hey, that is fantastic in
There's
itself.
police presence.
Really, that's great. You just never know in those types of events, so.
No fires. Yeah, there wasn't any fires.
I thank everybody for going and attending, and I thought it was a great day. A lot of good things happening. Under new business, we have a conflict of interest from Justin Phillips, and he is the one that does the watering of the plants downtown. Under Phillips Greenhouse, so we need to approve that.
Yes, I'll make a motion, we approve the conflict of interest for Dustin Phillips. We've done this years running with him and the service he provides, but he's also on our fire department.
I second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Sheets.
Aye.
Greg Miller.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye. Okay, does any department have anything? Scott? John, you didn't get your opportunity.
Yeah.
You're good. Okay, and then Wednesday, we have a planning session. Just a reminder, our city offices are closed on Monday. For Memorial Day, there will be no trash pickup until Tuesday, June the 1st for that Monday. So just to remind everybody. Annie, do you have anything for us tonight?
I think you covered it.
Okay, I'll take a motion to.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening.
We